we have a responsibility under the legislation to recommend a mortgage or investment that is suitable with regard to the needs and circumstances of that investor lender. We have to disclose material risks in writing unless the investor lender is a member of a designated class. In fact, I think we should require the brokerage has to have all investors complete a Know Your Client form in whichever format it is. So there is no one standard Know Your Client form, but you have to have something that indicates you've done your due diligence and you know who your investor is. And let's talk about what that is. Very simply, this is a form with a few purposes. One is to verify the client's identity and know their investment knowledge and their financial profile. So we're hitting those three marks. They are who they say they are. We know what their investment knowledge is and their financial profile. Financial profile also means, do they have enough money to invest? You might ask, why is that important? The fact is that somebody may hold themselves out as an investor or a lender, but they may not have the ability to do that. You might be aware that in the past, mortgage agents have gotten licensed, or I should say, fraudsters have gotten licensed as a mortgage agent. And then when they get licensed, they start running a lot of credit reports on people because they're part of a criminal organization. They're trying to do impersonation and identity theft. And there have been cases like that. There was a brokerage that had their Equifax access suspended because that happened. This individual ran hundreds of inquiries trying to take that information and sell it off. We have to protect everyone in the transaction process from fraud. And what that includes is our borrowers from having their information shared with individuals who may be trying to steal their information, commit identity theft and/or impersonation. So we have to ensure that the person approaching us saying, yes, I'm a private lender, actually is a private lender or has the ability financially to be a private lender. I've had individuals send me files because I do private lending, as you know. I have had individual brokers and agents send me files on potential clients that included their ID documentation, their credit report, their full application, and that's more information than they should be sending me. Initially, if we look at best practices, you should be sending the investor lender a summary. Are they interested? Not sending somebody's personal information out to several different investor lenders. That's an aside. But we want to ensure that we're not being used for any type of fraudulent activity. So we need to verify that this person is a legit potential lender of ours. And in addition to that, if an investor files a complaint with FSRA regarding the suitability of a mortgage, the brokerage is required to prove that the transaction was suitable for that investor. So we look at risk tolerance. Risk tolerance for an investor is viewed differently than that of a borrower. So the securities industry has several different risk assessment tools, including online quizzes, paper-based forms, but again, there's no prescribed fashion to do it in our industry. Determining an investor's lender's risk for mortgage investment should include understanding their income, their net worth, knowledge, mortgage investments, investment liquidity requirements, and investment objectives, including the needs and circumstances. we have to be able to address those needs and circumstances of an investor lender. For example, a need might be to have the money back. They might have a need for liquidity, which as a mortgage, we might not be able to provide them. Anything that might impact the investor lender's short and long-term needs, the need to liquidate, which is often problematic, needs to be included in the KYC form. And that's why we fill out a KYC form. And let me see. Sorry, looks like we have a duplicate slide floating around. And we do. So let's have a look at the components of a KYC form. Let me pull this up. The Form 3, which was used for non-qualified syndicated mortgage investments, was designed, let's see, boom, was designed to protect investors and help a brokerage understand who that investor is and what they were looking to do. So let me see, one sec. So that, then there is, darn thing go. Share. There we go. Can everybody see this? Form 3, information about investor lender in a non-qualified syndicated mortgage investment. Can I get a thumbs up if you can see that? Awesome. So what you'll find in this form are components of a good KYC form. Now, you don't need the first section because basically what we're talking about is an investment in a syndicated mortgage. But what this form is doing is basically saying, if you wanted to invest in a non-qualified syndicated mortgage investment, we need to know everything about you. And that's because they're risky. Well, we can use components of this for our own know your client or know your investor form. We're not going to use the Form 3. I don't suggest you use the Form 3. There are things in the Form 3 like a $60,000 limit and other things in regards to syndicated mortgages that are irrelevant to us, but there are very good components. So we could skip about your investment. This is specific for an NQSMI, but here we get into some information that I think you should have in your know your client form. You may ask, why aren't we providing a know your client form? And it's for the same reason that the regulator doesn't provide a know your client form. And that is because it's up to your brokerage and how they do business to interpret what needs to be in there. There is no prescribed know your client form. Therefore, I'm going through components that I think are helpful, but your brokerage can make its own decision on whether they think it's helpful. So we've got the name, the mailing address, the telephone number, contact information, right? Then if this is for an entity investor, in other words, you're representing a corporation. So an individual comes to you and says, I represent ABC Corporation, it lends money. We want to lend out money. So who is the investor representative? their contact. Now, the investor lender status, is it a member of a designated class who is a non-individual or individual? So non-individual, meaning corporation or other entity, or an individual who is, you know, a live person. Then we have to add this information. So we're getting them to tell us if they are a member, and we're seeing what defines a member of a designated class. You can expand on this or not, have this in your Know Your Client form or not. I would suggest that you do have this information in a Know Your Client form, because you want to know if they are a member of a designated class. Even though I'm going to give them full disclosure, that's going to tell me something about them, that they may have more financial ability than someone else. The declaration by the brokerage that they've gone through all of the information, but particularly of interest is investor lender details. Who are we dealing with? An individual, a personal investment entity, a corporation, or something else. Describe them. And then we get down into personal information. You can make a decision, again, just like your brokerage can make a decision on, you could have this form and say that this isn't necessary to be completed, or it is necessary, whatever your brokerage determines. You know, their marital status is important. People can make a good argument that this is important. Number of dependents is important. Somebody may say, I don't wish to divulge that. Make a note of that. What is their annual income? Have we identified the investor lender, and what documents did we use? Again, we're going to talk about in chapter 6. If it's an entity, what is the type and information about the corporation? If it's an entity, who are the shareholders? And how have we determined the entity of the or the identity of the entity? Too many ities going on. Then we have them sign there. And now we get into what's primarily going to be what you're looking at with individuals. Their employment. Are they employed? Is their spouse employed? Occupation, current employer, length of employment, length of self-employment if applicable. Are they retired? Are they in a different position? Then their financial information. Annual net income and the annual net income of their spouse. You can expand on this, but I think it's important that you know both the investor lender and the spouse, their basically household income, any self-employment, and asking the question, is your annual income stable or does it vary? And if it's variable, then why? Obviously, in this particular form, there's not enough room, if it was variable, to put an expanded explanation. So you could attach an addendum to this type of form. And then what type of liquid assets do you have? These are those cash savings, short-term deposits, liquid investments, securities. How much are they? And again, you could break this down a little bit further if you wanted to, or keep these. Fair market value of total net assets, investments, your home, investment properties, vacation properties, vehicles, all of that stuff. Total liabilities. So these are the net assets. So if any assets for investment properties, they are net of liabilities, but any other liabilities you have in addition to. Investment portfolio, cash, investments, NQSMIs, what's not here, should be here. Any other mortgages? I'd want to know if they've ever invested in mortgages before. The total investment portfolio. And this is just for NQSMIs, so we have a question here that wouldn't be relevant. Eligibility wouldn't be relevant because there was a $60,000 maximum for this type of investment. And this is important. Where is this money going to come from? Is it a loan? Are they leveraging? Do they have registered funds? Do they have savings? Where is this money coming from? It's also important, and the NBRCC is in conversations now with the other regulators talking about, when it comes to suitability, ensuring that there's documentary evidence of where the funds are coming from. Whether that ends up making it to the principals, I don't know, but they're in conversations about that. Then this is important. It's important here, the investment needs and objectives. Preservation of capital, income and growth, speculation. These are all things that you're going to see in mutual funds and other types of investments. But this only is as important, this is only as relevant as our knowledge of the loan that we are recommending. If we don't understand the risks behind a mortgage, and we think that a mortgage is a safe investment, then if somebody says, preservation of capital, I want to keep my money invested safe from short-term losses, you might think that a mortgage is a good investment for that. And in most cases, it's not. It doesn't meet that the risk profile of preservation of capital. That's one of the reasons we're here as well, to ensure we understand both sides of that. And the risk tolerance of the investor lender, and forget about in relation to a non-qualified syndicated mortgage, but what is the risk tolerance from very low to very high? Describe the willingness of the investor lender to risk short-term losses. The financial knowledge of the investment experience of the investor in a mortgage, replace that with from the non-qualified syndicated mortgage. What is their knowledge about investing in mortgages? So you could have somebody who through this form indicates that they are a member of a designated class of investor, and also through this form indicates they have no experience whatsoever in investing in mortgages. So this is going to inform how we deal with those individuals. You might have somebody else that says, very high, I know exactly what I'm doing. I actually don't want to rely on your advice, Joe. I just want to underwrite it because I have very specific criteria that I'm looking for. Send me the deal, send me a summary. If I'm interested, then send me the deal and I'll send you a commitment letter and handle everything on my own. That's a very sophisticated mortgage lender. Then you have somebody else. It's like, I've got $50,000. It's all the money I have in the world. I've got a young child at home. We're newlyweds, and we're in our mid-20s. You might want to say to them, this is not an appropriate investment. And then there's everything in between. The period of time now when the investor is going to need access to some or all of their money, this is going to tell us again, maybe they don't realize that it's difficult to get your money out of a mortgage, but this is going to help tell us. Any other factors we need to include among financial obligations related to medical needs, likelihood of job loss, a significant degree of dependence on housing prices, fixed income receipts, sensitivity to interest rates, anything like that we need to have a discussion about. A lot of people invested in pre-construction high-rise condos. And when they come online, they may have to use money that they have invested or maybe set aside for an investment to actually close the transaction. That's something they might not have anticipated. So you're asking somebody, tell me who you are, tell me what's going on in your life so I can give you some advice as to whether this might be a good fit for you. It's all as simple as that. And then we have a declaration by the investor lender and the declaration by the mortgage brokerage. There's an explanation in this form of a designated class in case we needed to share that as well. And that's always a good idea to have that there.